everyone, and welcome to the Dribble Podcast, your home for basketball in WA, with an inside look at the Perth Wildcats, Perth Lynx, and WA basketball throughout the 2021-22 seasons. My name is Craig O'Donoghue from the West Australian newspaper, and throughout this year, I'll be joined by a host of guests who will provide you with as much insight and entertainment as your basketball brain can handle. In this episode, we'll be joined by in-form Perth Wildcat star Todd Blanchfield as he continues to impress despite an off-season plagued by injury. Plus, Perth Lynx coach Ryan Petrik will give us an update on his team's fixture changes, the stars that are leaving to represent the Opals, and tell us what's happening with Marina Mabrey's foot. It's certainly been an interesting week since the last time we recorded the Dribble. Matt Hodgson absolutely lost the plot for the Wildcats and slapped DJ Vasiljevic in the face twice, while the team was superb against Illawarra and then didn't really turn up against Sydney. Meanwhile, the Lynx surged to the top of the WNBL ladder with their fourth win in a row, all in different cities, and they did so in one of them without Marina Mabrey. We still don't have any real info from the WA government about how our sporting teams can play in Perth, but one thing is sure, if our teams can shut out the real-life issues they are dealing with, they are going to be there when the whips are cracking. And one of the keys to the Wildcats at the moment is this man.
Finds Blanchfield. Tough knockdown in the corner.
To Blanchfield, who's been hot. Might as well put it up. Blanchfield delivers.
Everything running through Blanchfield, and why not? Blanchfield from outside. Got it.
Yes, he's in bloody good form at the moment. Todd Blanchfield, welcome to the Dribble Podcast.
Hey guys, how are we?
Going very well, thank you. How are you? What's it like down there at the moment? You've got your fiancée who's just landed in Tasmania. Must be a hell of a lot better than what it's been the past couple of weeks.
Oh, for sure. It was obviously she was up in North Queensland seeing her family, and it was just unknown when we were both going to be able to get back to Perth and actually spend some time together. But yeah, she had a bit of a rough travel day, but she made it down a couple of days ago, and it's been unreal.
So she decided not to stay in Perth, obviously, given that you weren't going to be here. It was important for her to be able to get away, and he said go back to Queensland and spend some time with other people rather than being stuck here by herself. Yeah,
for sure. And her line of work, she works at a primary school as well. So obviously she had the school holidays. So that was it sort of all fell into place if you're looking at it from that perspective. Obviously her family and all her family and friends, along with mine, are all in North Queensland. So it was just a perfect time to get back, because she hasn't been back in probably a little over 12 months now, maybe more.
So what's she doing with her work then? Given that if she works at primary school, school's literally just started. How's she handling that?
So yeah, she's right. Obviously. She's an education assistant at Hillary's Primary. So she was on a contract until the end of the last school term, which was the finished term 4. So obviously that contract had ended, and then with everything not being able to, with Unsure being able to get back into the States and everything that's sort of gone on with that, it's just sort of, it's put all that on hold, So at the moment, if she's got to go back, she's just got her G2G pass approved today, which was nice. So she gets back on the 5th of Feb, and then she's got a 2 weeks quarantine. So she'll have to do that by herself, which is a little bit unfortunate.
Hasn't been easy for you two, I would imagine, given when you came to Perth, you would have been expecting COVID to slowly start to whittle itself down and be a lot easier. Suddenly you're in a hub last year, and the airport scenes when you guys got back was a bit like Love Actually, with her jumping into your arms, and she had a big sign welcoming you home and stuff. You could see the relief on her face at that moment. How tough has it been for two people to move interstate, not really knowing a lot of people, and then have you shunted off elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been difficult. It's obviously when we are together, we do spend a lot of time together. So it's definitely a little bit different for us. And I guess the worst part is just the unknown, and nobody knows as to what's going on. So it's not like anyone has answers for us either. So that's from our perspective, but also the basketball perspective as well. It's almost like you're sitting in the dark and just waiting to sort of be told what's happening next, if that makes sense. So it does get a little bit frustrating, but at the same time, I mean, all we can really focus on is what we can control. And, obviously right now we're together in Hobart and we're just enjoying our time together.
How are the wedding plans going? You wouldn't have had much to do with it yourself, would you? Being the bloke who's not even in the state? How's that all progressing at the moment?
I've done 95% of it. What do you mean? No, that's I've been very fortunate that Jess a few years ago was a wedding planner, so she's got a very good idea of what's going on. But yeah, everything's falling into place really well. We're getting married on the 23rd of July next year, and then back home in North Queensland. So yeah, no, very exciting, and we're definitely looking forward to it.
I'm really curious about your life. You're 30. It's a really and you've had a really interesting past decade. Really, you've played in Perth, in Illawarra, in Sydney, in Melbourne, and in Townsville, all in the NBL. And in the off season, you've been back in Mackay, and you played New Zealand as well. You've written a Melbourne hub last year, and now you're living in Tassie. I don't reckon anyone's had a more nomadic life than what you would have in the past 10 years. Is it unsettling not really having a home base that you can settle in for an extended period?
I guess that's one way to look at it. But I guess from my perspective is, at the end of the day, I get to play the sport that I love for as a job. And, you know, obviously it can be frustrating moving around, and I guess being in a lot of different places. Sometimes if you're playing in the off season, you're moving 3-4 times, especially with all the stuff that's going on with COVID right now. You don't really have a home base, and you are moving around to 3 or 4 different places to live and to play. So yeah, it is. I guess it is frustrating from that perspective, but at the same time, you know, to be able to play, as I said, to play the sport that I do love and I've played my whole life, and be able to do it as a job I'm very fortunate, and I definitely count my blessings for that, because, you know, I've loved every minute of it.
You do love the travel side of things as well, don't you? You're an outdoorsy person. We saw you actually drive across the country to get here for your initial start, and you went on a bit of a road trip all around the country. Like, what does your off-court look for you when you are enjoying non-basketball things?
Well, I guess off-season, you know, Jess and I really try to, you know, we're both very outdoorsy people. You know, it's like this last off-season, we got all the way up to Exmouth, so we checked out like Coral Bay, Quabba Station, Monkey Mire, all those places, all the way up. Obviously, I did that in reverse, but all the way up to Exmouth, which was unbelievable. You know, we spent probably a week and a half all up. We got a camper trailer, so we just sort of planned a trip along the way. And, you know, some of those places were, you know, Quabba Station's obviously got no reception, and you're virtually camping on a farm. You know, they heat hot water with a fire. You know, the farmer keeps the fire going all day, so there's hot water. So it's unbelievable. No reception, so it's good. You know, you're just sitting there. You can sit there and have a beer and just watch the sunset, and, you know, there's no other distractions. You know, we got a 2-year-old golden retriever who's full of energy, so he also keeps us on our toes.
Certainly a good way to live your life when you're not on the court. It sounds like a lot of fun. Now, it has been a very interesting couple of days for the team, though. You were really good against Illawarra and then really poor against Sydney. What's been the reaction in the past couple of days since that Sydney game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, when we look back and we watch film, I feel like Sydney, they played well. You know, they came in, they were, you know, I feel like that's one thing, being on both sides of the fence, is playing against Perth, playing for Perth. You've always got a little bit of it. Like the Wildcats have always got a bit of a target on their back. You know, it's a very successful franchise. You get everyone's A game every night. And, you know, Sydney played really well. You know, obviously they shot the ball well, they were aggressive, and they executed their game plan well. But, you know, from our point of view, I don't think we did that. We didn't execute our game plan very well. Whereas against against Illawarra, you know, we were on point with our scout both games, and that's why we were able to come away with, you know, 2 convincing wins. But, you know, Sydney they're obviously they're very tough at home. Every team in this league, you know, if you don't bring your A game, you're gonna get beaten on any given night. So yeah, we had practice today, and we addressed some issues, and we cleared up some stuff. But, you know, I think coming into the next game against South East Melbourne, it's gonna be a lot clearer of a picture for everybody on court. So
the starts have been a real problem. One of the things I find interesting from a spectating point of view is you guys are accustomed to getting energised from the Red Army at RAC Arena, but with all the COVID fears and crowd restrictions, you haven't been playing in front of really anyone to support you or go against you when you're interstate. There are only 5,500 people at Kudos Bank Arena on Sunday, and it holds 17,000. Illawarra and Adelaide games were played with half-full stadiums also. So it almost feels like it takes the realisation that the game's getting away from you to spark people again. Does it feel a bit different not having the energy or the animosity of a crowd to get you going?
I mean, to be honest, it felt like in Sydney, when, you know, Sydney got on a run and they made some shots, it honestly felt like it was. I would have said a lot. I would have said more than 5,500. So it definitely doesn't feel like that. But at the same time, it's obviously be able to play at home in front of the Red Army it's an advantage. It's, you know, when you've got 10,000 people there, all in red. They're extremely loud. They extremely big fans of the Wildcats. They're very loyal fans. It's an advantage. It's almost like having a sixth man on the court because the game comes down the stretch and it's tied up with a minute to go, and you've got to get a defensive stop to almost win the game. It's a bit of an advantage. It can really juice you up, and it can really give you the advantage.
So, is there anything specific that was mentioned to you all today to what you need to fix this week against the Phoenix?
It wasn't. I feel like we just didn't really execute our scout. The coaches do a really good job of they put hours and hours and hours of time into watching these games and watching other teams play. I feel like we didn't really give that scout the best opportunity for even the coaches to make changes, if that makes sense. We wouldn't know because we didn't execute it well enough. So from a playing group, we've got to understand the fact that what that involves. I think that comes down to just having some toughness on the road. It's hard to execute a game plan for 40 minutes, and no one's perfect. Everyone's going to stuff up. We're probably not going to execute it for 40 minutes, but if we can execute it for 25 minutes to 30 minutes, I think that's going to be, that goes a long way to winning the game. And I think it's more on the defensive end because I don't think we shot the ball very well against Sydney, but I think we still scored enough points to win the game. They just obviously scored too many points on us to be able to prevent that from happening.
Now, has anyone figured out yet what on earth happened in Matt Hodgson's head? You had the ball, you travelled, and then all of a sudden he well and truly lost it. Has he spoken to the group?
To be honest, I don't exactly know. He'll deal with it in his own way, and it's something that I'm assuming he will address the group eventually. But, right now he's obviously probably going through a little bit, and, we've sort of just said that even if he needs to speak to anybody, we're all here for him. And, because it was out of character as to what happened. And, as I said, we don't need to know the full story yet. But, we've all just sort of reached out and just sort of said, when you're ready, you're ready. But, we're all here if you need to talk.
He's also got a young baby and a partner on the road as well, so life can't have been easy for him, and they were separated last week with you guys in New South Wales, so his life has certainly got some challenges off the court, which he spoke to us about the other week when we had him on the podcast. Now, to the Dribble Podcast MVP votes. As I mentioned at the start of the season, this award is based on the same system that the Wildcats use for their own MVP award, which is a 3-2-1 voting regime. Now, as part of that, media are included in voting in some games, and I was on the panel for the Illawarra game, so I won't be revealing any votes from that match, but from the Sydney game, my votes are 1 vote to our guest Todd Blanchfield, 2 votes to Vic Law, and 3 votes to Bryce Cotton, who was pretty much the only reason it wasn't even uglier in that first half. Now, Todd, your past couple of games have been fantastic. Ever since returning from the knee, you've shown you're in really good nick. What's been the key to being able to recover from 2 pretty significant injuries and still play really well?
Yeah, I feel like that was definitely disappointing to get the news I needed to have surgery in the first place in the off-season. I've never had surgery in my life before. I had my tonsils out when I was 9. It's the only surgery I've ever had in my life. So, yeah, it's definitely been, to get that news is definitely disappointing. But, obviously Dan and Josh, the support staff at the Wildcats are, they're the best of the best. I just put my faith in them and they told me to jump. I'd say how high. That makes sense. So I was pretty precise in the way I went about my rehab in the gym, especially. They were big on, strengthening everything around it, make sure that when it is healed and you can start running, that everything around it is strong and it's not weak and something else isn't going to give way. So yeah, it's definitely, it's different for me, but and then the second time was just unfortunate with bone bruising and the stuff around the actual knee. It was just an awkward landing, and I think it could have just, if I had landed on my good knee, which is my right knee, I think it still could have happened then. So just a bit unfortunate, but yeah, again with that rehab, I was very precise with it. Exactly, I made sure I was doing everything properly because I didn't want my knee to be the reason I couldn't get back play the way that I know that I can play. And that was a big thing for me. And, hopefully, I worked hard, especially doing what I could, whether it was ball handling, shooting, whatever I could do on any given day without overdoing it, because I didn't want to give myself any more setbacks. I was already, experiencing a long enough setback. So, yeah, it was definitely interesting, but I've definitely been happy with the way I've sort of hit the ground running again.
It's been remarkable. That second one looked yuck when you were playing, or it looked like it had been caught underneath you and you might not get back for a while. So you've done a bloody good job to manage to get back onto the court and perform so well, given the lack of pre-season that you've had. Now, it's been a massive week for a former teammate of yours. LaMelo Ball's in some fair nick, isn't he? 29 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists on January 27, and then 23, 6 and 10 assists on the 31st of Jan. What was it like captaining him? What was it like having him at the club, the sideshow that's around him, and the basketballer as well?
Yeah, he's obviously an unbelievably talented kid. Like, some of the stuff he would do at training was remarkable. You know, he just turned 18. He was, as I said, like, there's no really other way to put it. It was unbelievable, some of the stuff he would do at training. But at the same time, like, talking to him off the court, like, after training, he'd be there playing one-on-one, shooting. Like, he was just an 18-year-old kid. And it was almost like when we went on the road, like, this is one thing that sort of sticks in my mind. It's actually quite funny. When we were so we did like a Bendigo Ballarat, road trip for about 5 or 6 days. We drove around and played at Melbourne United a few times. And we finished the game in Bendigo, I think it was. Bendigo or Ballarat, I can't remember which one it was. And we had a signing session after it. And there was myself, Tim Conrad, and someone else was sitting there. And he was next. He was fourth in line. And the line just went straight, and then it just veered straight to him, and then that was it. He sort of just cut out the first 3 guys that were in line. So, yeah, it just goes to show, like, in Australia, he was virtually an 18-year-old rock star. Everyone was there to see him. Crowds were unbelievable. And, yeah, I think he probably did a lot for the NBL.
We're yet to see the Wildcats sign an official next star player, although you could argue that Luke Travers is sort of filling that role within the team, given where he wants to get to. How do you see the next stars program? Is it something you think is going to end up over here as well, and that we'll just continue going from strength to strength, given the experience with LaMelo?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, if you look at the people who have sort of done it now, even look at, LaMelo a couple of years ago, and then last year, obviously, Josh Giddey, he's played himself into a very vital role into OKC. So he's picked himself up to Rookie of the Month now. So, yeah, he's obviously, that next star program it's obviously it's exactly what it's put in there for, and it's working. So, I think the NBL it's a very extremely good league, and I think it's underestimated around the world. So to keep bringing those talented guys in and then opening that pathway up for them to actually get to the NBA it goes to show that, the NBL it's the real deal, because it can get you ready for the NBA.
Now, we have a segment on the Dribble Podcast called This or That. Can't sit on the fence, got to answer a real question. And what we're looking at with the issue this week is we've seen so many sports trying different things during the pandemic. You guys lengthened your season last year. Other sports have made theirs shorter, but they've all attempted to keep finals untouched. Do you think finals would be better if they were a longer series, as they are overseas, or do you think at the moment where they've hit that sweet spot where it's not too long, it's just right?
We're talking semi-finals or grand final?
Entire final series. Make them all best of 5, best of 7. Where do you think is the best of 3 and best of 5 the right way, or should it go for longer?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to say it's hit the sweet spot. I like it the way it is. If you can't sit on the fence, that's my answer.
It worked out pretty well last year as well, didn't it? With the best of 5 in the grand final series as well. With a couple of injuries, that would have really dragged on if you guys were struggling to put some people on the court, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely frustrating. Obviously, definitely sits in the back of your mind. But obviously we've got a clear new group this year, and we're building obviously back towards that point. So yeah, it was definitely frustrating, but we're doing what we can this year.
Well, look, thank you very much for joining us today. Given you with your lovely fiance over there, I'm sure she wants to spend more time with you rather than you talking to us. So thanks for joining the Dribble Podcast. We really appreciate your time, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And now it's time to enter the lair with the man responsible for this team.
Scherf out to Whitcomb. Lovely ball movement from the Lynx. Garvin in the corner. Big 3, that one.
Off the rim, Young the rebound. Hurried finish, her first points as time expires. Mabrey again! You're kidding me!
Yes, he is the coach of the ladder-leading Perth Lynx. Ryan Petrik, welcome back to the Dribble Podcast.
Craig, thanks for having me, as always.
Last time we spoke to you, it was just before you stepped onto the court for practice a couple of weeks back. This time you've stepped off the golf course to come and speak to us. How are you hitting them?
Not good, but plenty of time to search for balls in the bush. We've got given the girls 3 days off, so not hitting them well at all. But that wouldn't surprise anyone who's played with me before either.
It's all about value for money, isn't it? That's what I reckon when you play golf. The more times you hit the ball, the less it actually costs per shot.
Yeah, but then when you buy a box of AVXs for $76 and you lose literally all of them in a round, not the greatest value of sport of all time when you're playing poorly.
So giving everyone 3 days off, that's obviously really, really important for them at the moment because it's been a packed schedule.
100%. And also, like, one of the quirks, I guess, of being on the road, we only brought 12 players, which for a normal road trip is plenty. But on this type of road trip where we've now lost 2 girls for Opals commitments, and Marina's got a sore foot, and Emma Clarke's in COVID protocols, she's in concussion protocols, we're down to 8 bodies right now to train anyway. So, listen, we've been going flat out for 3.5 weeks straight, take 3 days off, rest your bodies. We'll get back on court tomorrow with 8 players and see what we can do.
So let's get on to the news of the day. The WNBL season is now going to be 18 games instead of 21, and the postponed games from earlier in the year have been officially cancelled. What was your reaction to the reduction of the number of games?
Well, we kind of expected it, just because you're looking around where can we fit these games. You can't extend the season out because players have got to move on to other things, and they're not contracted forever, obviously. So we've got to get the season wrapped up. We've also got to literally shut the league down for the best part whilst the Opals are away. So those two things make it really tough. And then obviously the border situation as well was where are you going to fit these games in. The men's NBL, they just kept playing. They sent over some DPs and whoever else to play for Australia, whereas we've had to send our Opals. So it's just with our league, how else you make up the games? You just can't.
So you've played the 8 games now, which leaves you with 10 to go, and you're in a really good position. The league has announced the next 3 weekends, basically. So you play Melbourne on Saturday, then it's Bendigo on Feb 12, Adelaide Feb 19, and Southside on Feb 20. They're obviously all in Victoria, but am I right that you guys are still holding out hope that some of those games could potentially come back to Perth if something can be arranged?
Yeah, so and that's what's still happening in the background, obviously, and a million times higher up than my pay grade. Like, again, Brent Dawkins, our GM, is in literally high-powered meetings 24 hours a day right now trying to find a solution to the border issue. So when Brent tells me what's going on, we'll move on from there. I know we've got another meeting with the team tomorrow, and right now everything's just kind of a guessing game. So
you had a meeting on Friday with the league. Has there been any commitment around dates of how long you are guaranteed to be there for, or are you still in a week-by-week scenario?
Very much week by week, just because we're not sure what's happening with the border. So clearly there's some kind of theory in front of us where we might have to see the season out on the road, and that has all kinds of ramifications that we're trying to avoid, obviously. So we're still obviously working towards plan A. Is there a way to get this team home? And from the sounds of things, we'll exhaust every avenue there humanly possible first, and then look at the staying in Victoria solution if we have to get to it. But clearly, we want to avoid that at all costs. So
the team's clear focus is to get back to WA as soon as possible and play what is classified as dirty games basically while you're still in quarantine at home. That'd be the way you'd be trying to get it done, wouldn't you?
Yeah, whatever gets us back to Perth. Again, got to remember the players left Perth knowing that Feb 5 was the day McGowan gave everyone for certainty to get back into WA, and then literally changed that 16 days out, and we're already stuck over here. So that's clearly what we're going to work towards first and foremost. And if we can pull it off, great. And if we can't, I guess we'll get to that bridge when we get to it.
Have you got anyone specifically who's going to struggle for work reasons or for family reasons who knows that there's a pressing deadline for them that they need to be back in WA, or is everyone at least able to stay if you have to?
Yeah, each to their own. Everyone's in a different camp. Again, we have 12 different players with 12 different places in their life right now. So, and again, this is not what anyone signed up for. So literally case by case, the biggest one with the players speaking to them as a whole is they just want, what are the actual options? So clearly we have an idea what one of the options might be in terms of staying over here for the entire year. And that's clearly not palatable for a lot of players. But as I said, Brent and co with Rob and Evan and Adam Bolden coming back in Perth, still working on a solution. Can we get back to Perth? So just trying to give that as much time as humanly possible. I guess the one upside, if there has been anything at all, is that we're stuck here till Feb 5 anyway. So kind of the same thing I said last week to Jace when he interviewed me. If we had to have a vote the day after McGowan changed his mind, we would have been on a plane home. But the reality was we couldn't get home anyway. So we've just kind of had to stick out these last week and a half, 2 weeks, hoping against hope, I guess, that something changes back in Perth. And if there's a solution there, clearly we want to look at it.
So from a fixturing standpoint, it's now a bit more like an AFL season than a basketball season. You play every team twice, and then you got 4 teams 3 times. And who you get 3 times is going to be really, really important. We're already seeing that Canberra have played Bendigo twice and the Sydney Uni Flames twice in their 4th. Townsville are 5th, and they're going to play the Flames 3 times with the way that the fixture has currently been announced. You'd rather get those lower teams 3 times than the top teams, I would have thought. Has ladder equality been discussed in how it's going to the league is going to avoid making it advantageous for one team and a disadvantage for another team?
Yeah, it's clearly not ideal. But again, right now we've got 50 things on our plate that aren't quite right. And trying to go, and you're 100% right, in a normal year, if that's all we had to focus on, clearly we'd be up in arms about it. But right now, can we get this team home to Perth is our only real priority. From memory, I had a quick look at the schedule. Correct me if I'm wrong, we've only got Sydney twice and Bendigo twice, and they're currently both sitting 7th and 8th with 2 wins between them. So clearly we'd rather have those 2 teams 3 times each, in theory. But again, right now, we're just adding things that are problems instead of trying to solve problems, and we can only control what's in front of us.
And what's in front of you is the strong possibility that Sammy Whitcomb and Darcy Garvin won't be playing for you this weekend, given they're in the Opals squad of 16 at the moment who are off training, and that will be reduced to 12 before they travel to Serbia this weekend. But you do play Melbourne, and they've got Kayla George, Ezzy Magbagor and Tess Madgen in that squad. It's obviously a challenge this weekend. How are you getting your head around the fact that you're most likely going to be without those 2?
Yeah, no, great questions, great problems. Literally spent an hour on the phone with Guy Molloy, Melbourne's coach, this morning. And it sucks because obviously we both think we're pretty good teams, both challenging for the championship in theory. And this is now the second time we've had to play them, and they've been undermanned. And clearly, in theory, no George, no McBeggar, no Madgen, no Whitcomb, no Garvin potentially. What are we getting out of playing this game in terms of like a scout for going forward? But as we said earlier, if we don't play, we're just never going to get the season done. So we'd love to play these guys at full strength. We'd love to play them in Perth. We'd love to play them in Melbourne. But it is what it is right now.
You wouldn't spend an hour on the phone with an opposition coach during the week too often, would you?
More than you think, actually. I've had a lot of head coaches and assistant coaches reach out. And that's been the really good thing, in fairness, to the league. Obviously, it's a competitive league and there's a lot of white line fever, and there's no one that gets along when the games are going on. But certainly off court, the amount of head coaches and assistant coaches that have called, just checking in, just checking how the team's going, just seeing how the coaching staff's going. Is there anything we can do to help? The camaraderie of the league has been exceptional. So, no, more than you'd think.
Did you ask him his tactics as well along the way? Who are you going to play in this position? How are you going to take us on?
No, and one guy wouldn't tell me anyway. So, no, we've been really good mates for a while. He's helped me out throughout my career. As I've said before, he certainly has some fingerprints over how we play offensively, and the things I was able to learn from him as a scout and as the lead assistant with the Lynx through those 5 years, scouting his offences and why he changed his playbook year in, year out. Certainly I think his brain a lot as the years have gone by. And there's certainly a reason why we play the offensive style we play, has had a lot to do with how guys run his Melbourne Boomers teams over the years.
Now, I assume that given that Alex Ciabatoni's had some chances in the past to start, and Alex Sharp started all through last year, would they just walk into the starting 5, given you're going to be without Darcy and Sammy?
Yeah, certainly you would expect so. But yeah, we're just trying to get through day by day right now. So where's Marina at? Where's Emma Clarke at? Do Whitcomb and Garvin both make it? Obviously, clearly, we hope they do. And then obviously who exactly is making it for Melbourne. But certainly we know we've got some ready-made players that are more than happy and more than able to walk into that starting 5 if need be.
Talk us through Marina's foot. Where's it at after the scans and the subsequent follow-up with the assessment of how her foot is feeling?
Yeah, still working on it. Again, she's reporting pain in it. So, and it's getting better by the day, we're told. Same kind of thing I told you on the weekend. Just the interesting one with this is because there's 2 sets of doctors to go through. Clearly, if a Garvin or a Sharp or a Ciabatoni gets injured, they would just deal with our medical staff. Whereas when you have a Whitcomb and a Mabrey and a Young, obviously they've got 2 employers. So you're kind of doubling up everything. And that's, in fairness, we can understand why. But clearly Dallas have a lot of interest in what's going on with one of their star players coming into a contract season. And clearly we're trying to manage it. And again, another added wrinkle of being on the road is that our head doctor, our head physio, our head S&C coach are all stuck in Perth. So they're liaising with Bendigo or Ballarat doctors and physios, etc., and then they're all relaying that onto Dallas. So there's a lot of double and triple handling. But yeah, long story short, we think it's going to be okay. But again, pains each player is different, and we'll keep getting reports on it daily.
So do you think she'll play this week, or is it still way too early to know?
Way too early. And again, if it play, we think if we can get this team healthy and if we can get this team to Perth, we think we're going to give this thing a real shake. So is there a need? 6-2 especially. We're not exactly playing for our season this weekend. Clearly we'd love to win it, but if we've got to give her an extra game off to get her 100% cherry right, that's what we'll do. If we were 1-7 and our season was hanging by the brink, different story.
And what about Emma Clarke? She should be out of concussion protocols. Or is it Wednesday or Thursday where she's available to train again?
Yeah, I thought it was Wednesday, but we'll wait and see. I thought it was Wednesday, but I know she's tested it a few times with our with the S&C coach that's over here. And same process, we're not in a rush. Worst case, we've got 8 players against Melbourne. Best case, we've got 10 if Garvin and Whitcomb both make it.
And how's her concussion element been? Like, everyone handles it differently. She was on the bench the other day, which is a pretty good sign that she was okay to be in the building at least.
Yeah, and the second part, so this, where was the last game? Just the games are all getting blurry to me. That's right, she did it there. So we were in Ballarat, so we were home. Sorry, there's the game before we had to drive 2 hours to the south side and then almost 3 hours back with roadworks. That was the game we left her back in Ballarat. So, she's on our bench. Again, really good kid, really high spirit. And same thing we've said before about Emma Clarke. We've got really high ambitions and high hopes for her future going forward. So same process. We're not in a rush with her at all.
And so if we go to the Dribble Podcast MVP votes from the last 2 games, against Southside, I've gone 1 vote to Sammy Whitcomb for her 16 points, including 4 3-pointers. 2 votes to Jackie Young, 19 points in a real step up to show what she can do. And it was 3 votes to Marina Mabrey with 22 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds and 3 steals. And when you go to the win over Bendigo, I've changed these multiple times since the game, and I'm still not sure I've got them right, given the impact all 3 of them had. But I've gone 1 vote to Jackie Young, 24 points, and made her opponents look silly at times. 2 votes to Lauren Scherf with the remarkable stats of 17 points and 16 rebounds. And 3 votes to Sammy Whitcomb, 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. I mentioned Lauren in the voting there. She's second in the Dribble Podcast MVP award behind Marina, but she isn't in the Opals squad. Are you surprised that she didn't get more of a look in?
Yeah, how politically correct do you want me to be? Astounded, shocked, outraged, all of the above. And I get every coach wears their team cap and every coach is biased. But certainly from our point of view and the criteria that was put out by Basketball Australia's High Performance, that how important the WNBL season was and how they're looking over every game, and WNBL form was critically important. With those things as the guideline, I'm not really sure what else Lauren was meant to do other than kill it. And her team is 6-2, and she is murdering it for us. And she's got to sacrifice a lot as well as the other bit. Her numbers would be crazy higher if we didn't have so much talent. So, again, the coaching staff of the Opals are welcome to pick whoever they want. But, yeah, to say we were surprised would be an understatement.
So there's been reports in the past couple of weeks about another Lauren, being Lauren Jackson, plotting a comeback at the age of 40. The World Cup is in Australia in Sydney this year, and there's suggestions that maybe she could get herself up for that. That would really have a big impact on younger players such as Lauren Scherf. What are your thoughts on the idea of bringing someone like Lauren Jackson out of retirement? In all honesty, I reckon I've spent 30 seconds thinking about it, just because of everything that we've got going on over here ourselves. So that'd be uneducated comments and uninformed as well. So I'd rather just keep it to myself. Clearly, she was a really special player back in the day and had to be medically retired. And if she's gotten over that, as you've seen with Alex Bunton getting back for Canberra when she was medically retired. So wish her all the best. But in all honesty, have spent less than 30 seconds thinking about it with the mess we're in over here. Yeah, there's a bit going on for you guys. It does feel a little bit from an outside looking in that if the former head of the WNBL, who's now the head of Basketball Australia's Women and Girls program, coming out of retirement to play for the country, is a bit like Justin Langer saying, we're struggling to open the batting, maybe I'll go in as the coach and play with David Warner. It just doesn't feel like sending the right message to players, I reckon, but you're not going to say that. Championships are bloody hard to win, and you've been in through so many finals campaigns and state league campaigns as well. Like, when you see where this team is in terms of talent and the opportunities that are there and how little they come around, does that help to push this team to go, well, it's not easy at the moment, but this is a special group? Yeah,
and I think that's probably part of the reason why we haven't already packed it in, because the players know how close they are. Like they can feel it. They know the offense is going to get them 90 points in their sleep. So can we defend anybody? And if we can, the quicker Sam, Jackie, Marina, Darcy, Loz figure out their starting 5 unit and they all find a way to sacrifice a little bit, push and pull a little bit, like how special they could be. The understated thing in any championship or premiership or whichever sport you're playing is you need a big slice of luck to go along the way. So if you lose a couple of star players, it's all over. And you've seen it again and again. Clearly, we're just trying to get this team home. We'd expect to be 15, 20% better at home than what we are on the road. And conversely, for our opponents, we'd expect them to be 10, 15% worse, needing to travel to Perth. You've seen our teams rock up to the Perth Arena with the Red Army in the background to like how much harder it is to play in Perth. So we know everything's right there for us if we can get this team home. But as I said before, you need a big slice of luck to win any kind of championship. You need a lot of talent, but you need a little bit of luck as well.
and you need some defence at times. You said you struggle to look at the way that you defend at times, and you are a little bit like the girl with a little curl right in the middle of her forehead when it comes to defence. When you're good, you're very, very good, and when you're bad, you're horrid. Do you look at them and think they've got so much talent that sometimes they know that if they flick the switch, they'll be okay, but you can't afford to be trying to flick a switch when you come to the business end of the season?
And he's literally word for word what we've been saying to him for weeks, because they have, especially from our point of view, it feels like they've just been a cat playing with a mouse the last 4 games in a row. And in all 4 games, they've gotten down, they've been in trouble, crowd's been cheering for the opposition, yada, yada, yada. And they've just gone, you know what, we're going to start trying now. And as soon as they've done that, it's been night and day how quickly we've accelerated away from the opposition. And it's just how it feels. When they lock in defensively, they can be a really special unit. Clearly, we've gone and recruited a lot of offense because we think we can teach defense, and we think we can get a 4 out of 10 defensive team up to a 7. But we think we're even better than that defensively when we engage. The problem is I think they find offense so easily and they know they can score 90 in their sleep that they can just get into that trap of, you know what, you guys are playing well, but we're going to score 95 tonight and it won't matter. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's making the coaching staff go grey real quick, and it's really starting to wear on them pretty thin when we go through film and show them all the defensive mistakes. And a lot of them are just attitude and effort. They're not talent mistakes. They're not X and O mistakes. It's just we're 5% off, we're 10% off. And as soon as the game mattered, we will suddenly fall.
You've managed to defend COVID extremely well so far. You're the only team in the league that hasn't been impacted by someone getting it, but that leaves you as the biggest, most vulnerable team at the moment if someone does get it, because it can rip through you when everyone else is healthy. Is that a real fear?
Again, a little bit, but with the 800 other problems we've got, that's certainly lower down the list, because you're right, we think if it does go through us, it'll sweep through us. And if that happens, as you've seen with the new schedule coming out, if a game's got to get postponed now, it's just going to get flat out cancelled. So I guess that's going through the back of our mind as well, is if we do lose 4 or 5 players with COVID, we're just going to shut it down. To the girls' credit, and our entire staff's credit that are over here. We've now been over here for a month. Let me find a big bit of wood to touch so I don't curse us. But we've lasted over a month now on the road without getting COVID. That just doesn't happen. And that's a massive bit of credit to the girls. That they're staying in and cooking a lot of meals, a lot of Uber Eats in, not going out, not partying, not doing anything. They're just locked into basketball / what's McGowan doing back home. But our girls have gone out of their way to not catch COVID. Certainly some of the players in the league have caught COVID from accidental circumstances, and that's clearly very possible. But our girls aren't putting themselves in harm's way, which is a real credit to them.
Now, we have a segment on the Dribble called This or That, where we look at an issue and you just give us one opinion rather than sitting on the fence. We're looking at the issue of fixturing. Now that we have seen with a pandemic that a lot of seasons can be shortened and some seasons can be lengthened depending on what the league wants to achieve, finals have tended to remain the same. Do you like the way finals are at the moment with best of 3 series pretty much all the way through the WNBL, or would you like to see less regular season games and longer final series in the future? Not for this season, obviously, with COVID, but as it all settles down, what do you think is better, longer finals or what they tend to be at the moment?
Again, if we've got a good team, like we do right now, we'd love the finals to be best of 100 and have a 1-game regular season. Just get straight into the playoffs. The playoffs is just a totally different animal. And when you're good, they're so much fun, and the tactical adjustments and playing the same team again and again and again just naturally always gets really chippy and really feisty. Personally, I'm all for playing as many finals games as humanly possible. Clearly this year, if we get stuck in Melbourne and we've got to get out of here quickly, then maybe it's a best of 1 and just get home. But in a normal, non-pandemic season, the less regular season games and the more finals, the better. Again, there's obviously asterisks with all that from an administration point of view, because a lot of clubs have got financial and sponsorship agreements based on how many regular season home games they have. But from a pure coaching point of view, max out finals games all day, every day. Yeah,
finals are good fun to watch. Well, look, thanks for joining us. Your life is absolutely chaotic at the moment. Your coaching's been bloody impressive. Your golf isn't that great. But we hope this team can continue to stay positive, win on the road, and get back to WA in a position to have a real crack later in the season.
No, appreciate it, Craig. Thanks for your time, mate.
Well, that's it for the Dribble Podcast for this week. Remember, keep logging on to thewest.com.au for all your basketball news and pick up your copy of the West Australian. Thanks to Samantha Rogers, as always, for her production work. Thanks to Todd Blanchfield and Ryan Petrik for their time. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Dribble Podcast.